into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
Bills to come on the car canvas cast. We are not in Boston.
This is probably like
we are far westerly of Boston.
Yeah, Hartford.
Yeah, where are we?
Oh, we're in Connecticut.
Yep.
Capital Connecticut.
Hartford
There's the Connecticut
Whalers,
sign.
Bring them back.
Bring them back.
The Whalers.
Bring it back. Shouldn't
saying
be
it.
illegal.
Bring back the Sun.
We could
Bring
use
back the
their
Connecticut
oil.
Sun, their WNBA team.
Okay, lay down that theme song, baby.
It's the car canvas cast, and you're here with your friends, talking around while we're driving around. What did we see? What did we do? It's the car canvas cast, and we're here for you.
All right, that was our new theme song. That was the Reverend Jeremiah Wright. That was the other speech he gave. It was about podcasting in cars. He's not dead.
Less popular, for sure.
Podcasting in cars with Kratom.
This is, yes, Anders' new
what I'm doing.
Seinfeld-esque show.
It's just Andrew's crashing cars. Welcome to Comedians and Cars on Heroin.
Yeah.
This week we got
He's just with Russell Brand, who's acting
oh shit,
normal.
wake up. Oh fuck.
Oh no. First order of business before we even start the show, if you are a paramedic and you're listening to this after we're dead because we crashed the car, please upload this to soundcloud.com/poddamnamerica.
This is our last request.
Yeah. It's probably not going to happen, but it'd be really cool if it did. You probably shouldn't be. We're not using a handheld device. There's an entire podcasting rig like in a studio inside of this. What is this, like a Prius?
This, I'm glad you asked, Jake. This is a factory gray 2010 Prius. You're getting an average of 60 miles to the gallon. You only got to change the oil every once in a blue moon, and it keeps on trucking.
Have we used electricity on this trip?
We're using it right
Anders,
now.
what?
What are you talking about?
Have we used electricity?
Doesn't it switch from gas power
in
to
the car.
charge?
I thought you meant us as a group.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's been Shabbos, so no.
No, we can't because it's Shabbos. But the car is hybrid. It is not fully electric, and for that reason, we have not only used electricity. We've used partial electricity.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I was going to say. I'm driving.
Yeah, you should probably concentrate on that.
All right, let me know when you need an opinion.
Alex.
Car podcast. I just want to say I feel like I'm riding on a cloud. Prius, the official sponsor of our anarcho-primitivist podcast about the Unabomber.
Let's introduce our guest.
Prius,
Hell yeah.
damn America.
All right, I am Jake Flores. Alex Patak is driving the car.
Honk honk. Didn't do it for real. I don't want to confuse people.
Anders Lee is here.
Anders Lee here on Road Damn America.
Yeah, on Pod. I'll come up with something later. I can't think of a clever word
Pod
for it.
Round America.
We're not doing car canvas
Pod
cast.
Round America.
Pod Round.
After I wrote and performed a song for it.
Yeah, car canvas. Oh, okay,
What
sure.
about Pod Drive America?
Something like that.
That starts with a D.
Does.
Kate Willett from Reply Guys.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, okay, welcome to the car.
Our Patreon
Oh, thank you.
subscribers have requested a little more Kate as a treat. I don't-
They can have a little more.
in my life. That's what they
So
sing.
you're back, but you're only allowed to be on our secret show, so people don't know that we associate with feminists.
It's fine. It's cool. I can speak my mind because no feminists are behind this paywall, so I can be honest about my still feminist yet slightly more problematic beliefs.
It's probably a safe assumption. I've met some of our patrons in real life.
To balance out Kate, we will be casting with the Hells Angels coming up. Don't miss that.
And Jeremy Hammond from Ballin' Out Super, welcome back.
Hey, had a great weekend of doing targeted harassment against women in support of Bernie Sanders.
Hey, good news. Just passed a cop, and we're clear to go.
We love to see it. No, we canvassed. It was so great. I loved it.
We are podcasting in a car because we're on our way back from New Hampshire, where we just went out to go canvass for Bernie and cause targeted harassment against, everyone. Pete fans, Warren fans. We got into a fight in a diner. All sorts of things happened. So let's get into it. Let's tell some stories from canvassing. Who would like to start?
Who's gonna shift into first gear here?
I'll talk about our canvassing experience today.
Okay, let's kick this off.
Well,
we had
I'll
some
talk
pretty good
about
ones.
should I start with a positive one or a negative one?
Well, just to explain where we're coming from, me and Kate on the first day we paired up with each other because they put you off in pairs.
We tried to organize the pairs so that everyone's personal character traits would be balanced out by another person's personal character traits, and I thought that Jake's intense Bernie bro energy would be balanced out by my small feminist Bernie broad energy.
No, we're a good sales team.
Because we were trying to cancel out each other's failings as people.
Yeah. We're like
canvassing together.
Well, and yeah.
Do you like Bernie Sanders? Do you like feminism? Oh, do you hate it? We got someone for that too.
Kate and Jake doing the classic good cop, trash cop routine.
Yeah.
And me and Alex doing the good cop, extremely loud cop routine.
Hello. What kind of podcast do you like? Do you know about Joe Rogan?
And so Jake and I went canvassing yesterday, which was very sweet because during Raghav's life, Jake and I were not friends, nor was I particularly enthusiastic about Bernie Sanders or his supporters or this podcast.
Dare I say enemies?
Yeah, and so I think symbolically it just proved the unifying power of Bernie Sanders,
A real Power Rangers Green Ranger to White Ranger phenomenon.
Yeah, but so we decided...
I'm a Vegeta.
We decided to share this good uniting news with students in a dorm yesterday. We were assigned to some student housing, and Jake and I knocked on...
This is the good story?
Yeah, I'll tell the good story after.
Okay.
This is the bad one. So Jake and I were assigned to this dorm, and we knocked on a lot of the doors. We had a big list of maybe 67 apartments that we were supposed to knock on, but everyone had moved, so after a while we just started knocking.
Yeah, I want to clear something up because something about this story, since we put it on Twitter and stuff, people have been saying oh my god, they're gonna sink the Bernie campaign because they're out there doing SJW stuff and ruining Bernie's base, which is the Come Town subreddit. And they're like, somebody tweeted at me and they were like, you're not supposed to be in a fucking dorm. No, it was a off-campus student apartment complex.
Okay.
We're here with the Bernie Sanders campaign. He, him, no clapping.
We're here with the Bernie Sanders campaign. We are here to end all education.
But the other thing about it is that dorms are that people switch rooms so often that when you canvass, they give you addresses with the the names of people who have signed up for or pledged to vote for Bernie and things like that. But because a dorm, you go up to somebody's room and someone moved out of there 6 months ago, it's really difficult to go by the book. And so we just knocked on a few doors that we weren't sure, whether the person lived there or not, but figured if somebody answers, it's a damn college kid, we could just talk to him about Bernie.
Yeah. College kids are supposed to like Bernie. We see in polls that, theoretically 40-50%, sometimes I've seen into the high 50s of college-age people like Bernie Sanders. So, but that was not our experience yesterday. We knocked on the door of a bunch of places, and, we did have some success. There were some Bernie supporters in there. But after a while, Jake and I think, both noticed this phenomenon where whenever a white woman answered the door, they would be like, I have kind of like a personal belief that I don't talk about politics with people ever, and it was just like clear like voting for Trump energy, and I felt so. And sorry about my sorry about my offensive white woman imitation. I guess I could have just talked in my own voice because I am also a white woman, but I wanted to convey. But anyway, after a while, I started feeling very embarrassed about the state of white women. It made me realize, actually, why Jake was perhaps so against white women in the days that we did not get along. I could see where the hate was coming from.
You see where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah, but then finally we knocked on a door of this guy who said he was in the Yang Gang. And him and his roommate came and listened to our spiel about how Yang probably wasn't going to be viable in New Hampshire. And I think they even asked us questions about Bernie Sanders for a while. We probably talked to them for like 10 minutes, a while. And then we heard them close the door. They closed the door. And then we heard them behind the door talking about how me and Jake were losers. They wanted to punch Jake in the face.
Here's exactly how I would say this went down.
Wouldn't stop talking. I mean, which I think hurt me all day because it's like that is a fair assessment. I am a lady who won't stop talking, and Jake does have a punchable face. So it was like they were right on, but like fuck them anyway.
Yeah. Here's how I would say this went down in my memory, right? We knocked on this door. This guy opened, and he was smiling. And, we were saying, hey, we're with Bernie, yada, yada, yada. Does this person live here? He goes, no, they don't. And then we're like, okay, well then, are you voting? He goes, yes. We go, do you mind if we ask for who? Do you mind if we talk to you? Yada, yada, yada. And he's smiling the whole time. And it occurred to me afterwards that he was not smiling. He was grinning, which is like two different things. He was like very
Have you ever
much
seen The Grinch?
Yeah, he looked like the Grinch.
A lot of the way the Grinch will contort his face is actually not a reflection of happiness at all, and is instead an expression of wicked anti-Christmas fervor.
That's exactly what was happening, because he hates Santa Claus, who is Bernie Sanders. Okay, so he was, like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you, but he told us up front he was a Yang guy, and so we talked.
Gang affiliated.
We talked to him a little bit.
Showed you his tattoos.
About Yang's campaign, sort of dovetails in certain ways with what we're trying to do with Bernie, and how this coalition could be a good idea, and yada yada yada. And he fucking let us talk and went back and forth with us. And then there was like a second guy who just looked like an Adam Devine character with like hair gel spiked up
he was
and
really
shit
shitty
in the back, and he was like. He came by and he was sort of behind the guy, and he was like, I'm going to vote, but I live in another state, or I'm from another state or whatever. And we're like, you can do an absentee ballot, or you can register tomorrow, all this shit. And here's what happened in my memory. Like, we went, all right, man, well, cool. Thanks for letting us talk to you. And then we shut the door, and then we turned to knock at the door that was immediately next to it. And I turned to Kate, and I was like, I think that went pretty well. And then I heard, like, muffled, like, from far behind a door, just like, Jesus fucking Christ! I hated those people. And the guy's like, she would not stop talking, and I wanted to punch that guy's lights out.
I mean, which, by the way, it's like, that is the vibe from both of us.
I don't know, man. I thought we were on our better behavior.
We were being really nice, and also, it was just like...
I've said more punchable things.
I think for us, it was, for both of us, at least for me, there was a huge... there was a little bit of an ego, like, ow, because it's like, I think of myself as being like a cool adult, and I like to think of like, okay, I'm like a comic, I like socialism and drugs and friends and podcasting or whatever. I like to think that a college student would be like, oh, this lady's cool, but not at all, actually.
No, some of the kids suck. They probably thought we were cops or something. I want to point something out about this.
Maybe it can be cool to reach out to your community.
But then later, so yesterday was like kind of a hard day. There was like a guy, a 2016 Bernie voter, who was thinking about switching to Buttigieg, and there was a couple other people that were like, the few people that we talked to, I think, were kind of undecided still, and definitely more people considering the rat than we wanted there to be. But then today, Alex and I went out canvassing, and Alex and I, we're a more wholesome team. It was Alex and I as a team. It's a real good cop situation, right. Even though neither of us believe in cops. But
it's like, we don't believe in cops. Kate was there to bring like the message. She's very approachable. She's very small. You're like, I can put Kate in my pocket and let her tell me what she's here to say.
I was an evangelical Christian as a teen, and it's still fucking in me. That,
And then I was like a
that
big-
hardcore evangelical energy,
Yeah.
sharing the good news.
I was
I'm-
like a big tough guy though. Like people were seeing me and they were like, "Who's this tough guy?"
That's definitely what was
He's
happening.
Yeah.
he's got a hat on. He's got a red hoodie. I think that's a gang color.
Don't
saw
let
our-
Alex lie to you.
But so we had a good time because
I do have red hoodies, so
these older people
They saw our cool photo.
were thinking were very torn. But they were 2016 Bernie voters, and they were torn between Bernie and Tom Steyer. And I think we sold them on Bernie. We got them to think about the fact that the young people were with Bernie, and obviously, of course, Tom Steyer probably isn't viable, but
Kate
they
did all of the talking, and she was so convincing and nice. And then I talked for like 3 seconds, and because they were like, I don't know, if maybe somebody younger could be Tom Steyer, and I was just like, that's not even a real option, you dumb old bitches.
We went around New Hampshire and told everyone that Tom Steyer is a divorced man, which we have been saying on this podcast for months, and it turns out he's not.
Yeah, it's just like I think that here's the thing. I feel like when leftists talk about New Hampshire as, a state that Sanders won in 2016, I feel like in a lot of the conversations there's been an assumption that he'll get those same voters back, and because he won in 2016, he'll just kind of have an easy time here. And I don't think it'll be an easy time, actually. Like he's ahead in the polls, and I certainly think that he has a great shot. That's probably what will happen. But I think that people, it's really good that so many people are working really hard, because there's way more apolitical, kind of not very informed folks than than you would think that there would be, and they're not like socialists. Like I think they voted for Bernie because I don't know why people voted for Bernie in 16 necessarily, but it doesn't. I think a lot of it was like nice, trustworthy, authentic, and not like necessarily committed leftist politics or something like that.
Also
This is the
the
story
give
of
him
the
hell.
trip, though.
There's also a give 'em hell aspect to him that I think, that's a big thing in New Hampshire. Is
Yeah,
they just
absolutely.
want somebody to, and a lot of these states in Maine, I was talking to someone in Maine, and they're saying, like, all the people this guy knows in Maine are either Bernie or Trump. Bernie or Trump. They just want someone with fire in the belly who's going to, piss off the system. And one of the people I had, my swingiest swing voter was someone who's probably not going to vote, because he said the Electoral College, that's basically going to make my vote not matter.
Right.
So I had tried to and convince him, like, this is the best middle finger you can give to the system is by voting for Bernie Sanders. And he said if he did vote, it would be for Bernie, but we'll see if he actually does.
Yeah,
we will know. We probably won't.
The day that we had in Keene around like the college in that area was very disheartening for me, because the polls showed Bernie up so high, and then everyone we talked to seemed to be this weird, vague.
Yeah, and I think that so many people were still undecided, which we could be like,
Yeah.
we don't know who was on our list, right?
Yeah,
And the
But
and the
what I'm getting at
neighborhoods
is
were
that-
distinctly different from one another. Where we were canvassing today, Anders and I was like extremely good for Bernie, and then over by the college, it felt like we were talking to a lot of like landlords who own the buildings that they rent to college students, who naturally have nothing to gain from Sanders' presidency.
Yeah, and it just, I think that what was so crushing to me emotionally yesterday was really having to listen to people articulate the reasons that they support the rat. It's like that's like more than people enjoying Pete Buttigieg. I mean,
It was fucking
how
frustrating.
can I be expected
right?
to value that? I'm sorry. I'm glad this is behind a paywall, because, like I said, this is getting problematic. I did not, in reality, listen with an open heart to the reasons that people like Mayor Pete. I hate Mayor Pete.
Oh, we did so much lying, all of us, this
Oh, yes.
entire thing.
Yeah, no,
The
I
second anyone talks to you, just like that I would always vote for whoever the candidate
Yeah,
is.
Yeah.
Canvassing
So many
tip,
people,
just
I'm-
lie.
Your house is so
We're on the same
nice.
team.
It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, no, I swore my own allegiance to the eventual Democratic nominee, and not only did that, I swore Alex's allegiance to the eventual
did.
Democratic
She didn't even
nominee.
check in with
and
me.
perhaps most ridiculous, I swore Jake's allegiance to the eventual
Yeah.
I
Democratic
said I would
nominee.
convince Jill Stein
Still
to
with her.
endorse the eventual
I told somebody
nominee.
my number 2 preferred candidate was Andrew Yang.
Man, he said that like right away.
I would highly
I told that to
recommend,
somebody,
though,
and he said he wanted to punch me in the face.
I would highly recommend people at home, though, don't try this yourself. We're performers. We're very good at lying.
Yeah, we're very good at lying.
I've been saying stuff happened to me the other day for years.
I told someone their grandson was about to email them back.
Here's my biggest lie. I tell people all the time. I convince people constantly. I've become very good. I'm becoming an ambassador for this idea that Bernie Sanders, that there actually are zero Bernie bros, and that there are no toxic online Bernie Sanders supporters, and yet
We're all hot girls for Bernie.
and yet I know that there are, because they are my friends.
I like to also consider myself.
We're the toxic friends.
I
We are
like to also
we are all
consider
Bernie
myself
Sanders reply guys.
an ambassador for lying because I'm Irish. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
I dressed up as the Toxic Avenger for this.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like, well, and that
Was
was the
the
thing that I
English
learned
coughing
last
with a
week in
top hat?
Iowa too, is that it's like, especially canvassing around Des Moines and, I mean, even in New Hampshire to some extent, but I think the area where I was pretty wealthy. But when I was canvassing in Des Moines, it was, pretty, like a lot of low-income apartment buildings and, kind of more working-class neighborhoods. And I really got the feeling, Bernie Sanders' support is exactly what they say it is. It's multiracial, it's working class, it is a lot of young people, but, it's also a lot of, older, lower income people as well. And, it just really, really hit home to me that this is a campaign for the most marginalized people that is based in bringing new voters who have traditionally been disenfranchised or apolitical into the political process. And it really filled me with joy when I was in Iowa. But I'm glad I saw that, because my actual friends in real life, we are extremely online Brooklyn podcasters, and each one of us is the extreme stereotype of a Bernie Sanders supporter.
Oh, this is a good time to talk about the diner story this morning.
Yes.
Okay.
Where to begin?
Somebody not driving do this. I'll pipe in for something annoying halfway through.
Well, there were 9 of us, and we...
which is already an annoying number of people to
Yeah.
bring
Right, this is a town with, how many people do you think live in Keene?
10.
25.
So we took up, quite a bit of space.
we doubled their population in this diner.
We were going to go to a
people
diner where we would have our own booths, which is where we went yesterday. And then it was packed, so we went to another diner, and they sat us all at the counter, basically in the center of the restaurant, high up, so our voices would, be spread all across the building.
David Spector was there.
David Spector
I know
was
you're
there.
asking.
He, tell the oatmeal story.
Okay,
David
so-
Spector orders oatmeal, and he says, "Can I have some toast with that?" And she says, "Okay, what kind? White or rye?" And he says, "Wow, I've never been asked that question." And I'm sitting next to him, and I'm always on edge whenever I sit down in a restaurant with anybody, just because I worked for a server for so long. So I'm just don't do that. And so my immediate reaction is no one has asked you what kind of toast you want, and then he just starts howling
Yeah, he's
with
I
laughter.
thought you had oatmeal.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I've embarrassed us in front of New Hampshire. Oh, God. And you thought I meant I thought you meant the oatmeal. No one else in this restaurant, we're all having small conversations and stuff. No one has spoken the entire time we've been in this
It's
store.
a very quiet restaurant, otherwise full of exclusively old people and then
There's
people
a-
with children
Yeah.
in strollers.
There's a middle-aged couple. They're 50, but they had a baby, and they were supporting Bill Weld. They had Bill Weld.
Because you think they're Trump voters, but no. They
no.
are smarter than that. They're on the Welders Union.
Julia Claire's dad, Julia is the co-host of the podcast Reply Guys, and her dad is a Bill Weld supporter.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Bringing Americans together like two pieces of metal. No, but the David thing was not the peak of the story. So, we're sitting there, we finally get through the order. It takes, 2 employees, a half hour to get through all of us. And then we continued on like we weren't in Keene, New Hampshire, and just started, because we were 10 feet away from each other, just like, what do you think of polyamory or whatever bullshit
Yeah.
we always talk about.
Exactly. That's the thing, is it's like we're all comics from New York who are from a particular.
You know,
like,
it's true. It's like
political
we
set.
were with the like
we were
look,
the only
Bernie
Jews
Sanders
these people had ever seen.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders has a multiracial, working class coalition, people of all ages, more women than men. However, our group was mostly men, an extremely bro vibe, and it was very much the stereotype of like a bunch of young men, and then me and a couple other women who, if you were looking through the right lens, could look like apologists for them. So.
We talked about, what did we talk about? We talked about who gets fucked in a polyamorous relationship.
Yeah.
We talked about the differences between cocaine and Adderall.
Yeah, fucking married men.
Yeah, what married men are like when you fuck them.
Yeah.
There's like this old woman just giving.
Anorexia, pro-ana
that's right.
forums. And all of this very loudly. We're all such loud people.
There's a woman behind Rachel McCartney giving her the
realize how bad
1,000-yard
this
stare.
I think we talked
And
about
I'm just
Amy
like-
Klobuchar beating someone with a stapler, but in like a sexual way.
Yeah, I was talking about how it turns me on that Amy Klobuchar is like so sadistic, because I am look, I don't support
Look.
Amy Klobuchar politically, but look, I'm going to be real, I have some sub tendencies, and she's hot in that way.
I sexually support Amy Klobuchar.
I was
Yeah,
a
kicking
like-
lot
my,
of Tulsi supporters in the car, but this is who I've chosen.
I was kicking
Tulsi too.
down the
Tulsi's
block.
pretty
There
hot.
was Amy's headquarters for Keene,
Yeah.
and we could have stopped in and got stickers and put them on, so people would blame this on her. But
Right.
but no.
Instead, we were covered head to toe in Bernie.
But I do
Sanders.
wanna
No,
point
that
out-
is true. We should have all gone. Like, we should have actually, maybe perhaps the most constructive use of our time
And
in
our
Keene,
skills.
Yeah, could be that we should have pretended to be Mayor Pete supporters,
We should
and
have,
then
yeah.
our natural personalities.
And there is no
would have
safeguard.
alienated people from him.
There's
Yeah.
no safeguard for campaigns to stop people doing that.
Yeah.
Folks at home, that's something you could do.
No, you can do a false flag operation against Pete Buttigieg.
And don't
It's-
be crazy
honestly,
about it. You'll get caught.
use
but
the
just
man's
be
Yourself.
off-putting
Just
and
be
annoying.
yourself.
Use the man's own tools against himself. Hire crisis actors.
Don't go out there and like lie or like say crazy shit or be mean to people, because they'll call the office and complain. But if you just go and be gross and weird and like annoying,
Just explain your favorite podcast to them.
yes, there you go.
You
That's
don't
the
even have
ticket.
to like color it up or anything. Just explain like the premise. They're not going to care if it's socialist or whatever. They're just be like, this young person is annoying the shit out of me, and I don't want to hear about it anymore. I don't feel that bad about the diner, because I
No.
think everyone there was not a target for us at all.
No,
Except the
we did not
workers.
lose
Except the
anyone who
workers.
was.
Except the workers.
Yeah, which
but we
is
tipped
why
them. So
yeah,
But we tipped them. I tipped them
really
very
well.
well.
I also tipped them
yeah.
well. I felt really bad.
But just to put a button on this, us sticking out heavily in Keene thing, the first morning we were there, we did go to a second diner, a different diner completely, that we all felt a little more comfortable in. But
Lindy's.
I did notice that somebody put on the jukebox as we were like getting up to leave New York, New York.
Oh,
So we were
I didn't think there
definitely
was a signal.
seen there,
Yeah.
too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, Rohan got pulled over at one point, and
Yeah.
like the cop asked him if he was lost. Like, I don't know if you got what part of the country you guys are from, but these are mean things. These are specific messages that people in small towns like to send.
Driving while the most timid Indian man,
Yeah.
who is also sick, and he's just like, I'm sorry, I'll go to jail.
I'm sorry, you're right, I am Indian.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, Rohan is such a gentle soul. He would just be like, I don't know.
right,
Just
do
be
I-
like, I'm really sorry that I inconvenienced your day, that you had to take time out of your day to be racist towards me.
That costs you emotional
I'm so
energy.
sorry. I will, in the future, I will be racist to myself. You really don't need to do this. I'm so sorry.
Where do I think I'm going? The big takeaway from this trip for me, more than anything else, and if you're already politically active, you know this, and this was a great refresher. If you go and talk to people who A, aren't online, and then B, aren't politically like following the emotional roller coaster of current events every day, their motivations for voting are nonsense.
Yeah.
And you still have to get them to vote, and it is I don't know. What were some of the what were like people's criteria for voting you came across? The one I think of as the beginning of the story is Jeremy and I went out the first day as like, what was our duo's dynamic?
You knock because I'm too anxious to knock, and then I do all the talking when they come out, and then you occainly yell something.
Right.
It's,
I
you
was
knock
like-
on Heisenberg's door from the
Yeah.
last season. He goes, "I am the one who
Well,
knocks."
she's the one who knocked, and I was like, thank you so much for answering. We were with the Bernie campaign, and I see you have a bomb there, and I just want to say that, you know, who's really the bomb is Bernie Sanders. Yeah, we did stuff like that. So we're mostly just talking on empty doors, right? And we finally get around to this one guy who's like in his yard, and he's fixing up his truck, and we're like, oh, finally somebody's home. We're like, are you 34C or whatever? And he's like, I'm glad you asked. And I'm happy you're walking around to be the canvassing for president. And that's why I'm going to tell you that you've wasted your time, because I'm a diehard Amy Klobuchar supporter.
I want her to tie me to the roof of her car and drive to Massachusetts.
Oh, he said some weird shit
He
that
said
now I'm
such
weird shit.
I'm reading way further
There's
into.
no way. Yeah, I mean, it's like,
I just want to like get out what he said here, because I feel like this is how a lot of people think. He said, listen, I'm a lifelong worker. Workers' rights are what's important to me. Bernie Sanders is a career politician, and Amy is a tough broad who gets things done, like my boss and my wife.
And my mother.
And my mother.
Those are all the same person.
But
Yeah.
So to think that Bernie has like the workers' vote in the bag because his policies are about it is so wrong. It is on another plane. You have to tell people. They don't know. They just they think like whoever's meanest is the workers' guy for whatever
the thing
reason.
Is, this guy
Yeah.
wasn't about workers' rights. He was about I'm a worker and I don't believe that he's ever worked before, so his perspective is wrong. You know what I mean? Like people think that you get like that she got some sort of perspective from being a lawyer that Bernie Sanders never did because he.
It's not the same kind of work.
It's so
Like,
weird though.
No, not at
because-
all. This
because
guy was not a lawyer.
A lot of those people like Trump, and he's never worked a day in his fucking life.
Yeah.
But they have this weird shit where they're like, he's a businessman, and
he's a
that's work?
tough guy.
yeah, I mean,
He's a
it is-
Billie Eilish bad guy.
I think that there are a certain amount of people that do see. I mean, and this isn't most people, you know, but there was definitely some people who see what Bernie Sanders is proposing as some kind of like, you know, idea for young people and extremists and stuff, and not as the working class agenda that it is, you know. I mean, with Amy Klobuchar or something, I think, I don't know, people have just been seems like they've been so like the propaganda that like centrism is what most regular people want has been extremely effective, you know.
Yeah.
What were some other like voter logics you guys witnessed? I
A
remember
lot of people
yeah.
saying that they needed, and it was funny actually in New Hampshire, it was this thing that I never thought of before, which is that people were like waiting to make a decision to see the candidate in person.
This was the
Pete
most
came last
frustrating
night,
thing.
and then Bernie was coming tonight. And you would think in a state like New Hampshire, you know, where like people have been bombarded for months by canvassers and phone calls. I mean, most people had talked to several people before us, and
You wait to see them in person,
you know,
that way
and
you know
then
they're
it's
not a
also
hologram.
like there's just, you know, the primary's been going on for so long. I don't know if there's been like 95 debates or whatever, but like, you know, a lot of people were waiting to make up their minds to these like 2 days, and that's why it was really stressing me out yesterday that you know, the rat cheated in Iowa, and the media like fueled this narrative that he was the winner based on like SDEs, which is some really stupid way of
Suck-dicking
determining
energy.
things, which has nothing to do with the amount
Yeah.
of delegates or
Small
the
dick
amount
energy?
of votes. Small dick energy.
Yeah, He got the most
exactly.
small dick energy.
Suck
Yeah.
dicking energy is in a way big dick energy.
Yeah, so I mean,
yeah,
there was
my
just
man Mayor Pete got that small dick energy.
yeah,
When your dick is so big, you just want to like eat other dicks.
Yeah.
Pete,
Yeah.
And it gets bigger when you eat them.
It gets bigger when you eat it, like
Yeah.
a demon.
My
I'm
dick's
really sorry to
Kirby.
break this to you, and I don't mean to. Look, I'm not trying to say anything positive about Pete Buttigieg, but I would not say that he has small dick energy. I would say that Pete has firmly
No one running
medium
for
dick
He's got
energy.
media. I know.
Pete
I
has
know he's
medium
got
dick
medium
energy.
dick energy.
I mean, small dick energy is like small dick people can be quite fun, honestly, in my opinion. I know, like it's
Swashbucklers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, there are like insecure small dick people, but there are also a lot of small dick people who really, put their heart into things and, make up for it in other ways.
This about like a guy pouring
an interesting
gasoline
turn.
on his dick, but his tiny dick, and he's like bragging about how he's gonna like just get the front of the pussy.
Ew.
Who was I talking to this
Harvey
about?
Weinstein.
It was Harvey Weinstein.
We were talking
Yeah, we were
about
talking
his...
about how Harvey Weinstein has a vagina,
deeply scarred
but like
vagina
still
penis,
a dick,
yeah.
and so he could like brag about his dick, but in a deeply insidious way.
Yeah,
and how you'd
but-
pull it off.
Let's go back to talking about voter logic.
No, I like this dick thing.
Dick logic.
I
Oh yeah,
think
and
they're
then
the same
big
conversation.
dick energy is just like a really unearned confidence. But Pete's confidence, Pete was all about like earning his confidence within a technocratic framework, it's all about the Rhodes Scholarship and the Ivy League institution
we
and
earn this yard by yard.
and the internship
Inch
or
by
not
inch.
internship but the work at McKinsey and just like all of these
He measured his
all
dick
of these
growing up, and
markers
then
of
he was like,
My
goals.
success.
My dick has a yeast
Yeah.
fixing crisis.
Whereas like
It's a presidential size.
yeah, big dick energy would be much more like
Bernie Sanders.
yeah, I
Bernie
don't know.
has big dick energy.
I actually think that Bernie Sanders has a totally different kind of medium dick energy, and then the
He
medium
has no dick energy.
the medium dick energy
That's why he's so powerful.
that Bernie Sanders admits is like, it's fine, my dick is fine. That is not the subject right now.
On a good-
exactly
on
what
a
you
good
would say
day,
if
my
it was
wife
medium
likes my
dick.
Women would say,
Yeah.
if you look at the statistics, most women would say they don't like a big dick.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree on this.
99% of the women.
I've read studies. They show women prefer a medium-sized dick.
I
The
do
top-
not know why this is part of the New York Times endorsement.
I will not be dragged into this partisan bickering about dick size.
I mean,
The top
I can't
1%
really say,
of my dick.
I'm trying to think of like who of the candidates has big dick energy.
Cory Booker. It was Cory Booker, and that's the reason that he didn't go very far, because he was just too
Yeah.
fucking relaxed all the time.
Yeah.
He was fucking Rosario Dawson.
Cory Booker could have some, although
I never believed him when he said he was mad about
dick
shit.
vibes from Cory Booker as well. I would say no. I think Beto had some big dick energy. To be honest with you, Beto had a kind of a
I can
had sort
see
of a
that,
big
yeah.
dick sort of swagger.
But he's also got skinny dick energy.
He skateboards around
Amy
on it.
Klobuchar
why he's bad at skateboarding.
Amy Klobuchar has an intensely confident, sexual energy, but it's more just like she would fucking throw you over her
Yeah,
knee and just take
she
care of
owns
it.
a big dick.
Like yeah.
After your sex is done, she hurts you, and that's her kind of energy.
Yeah.
Another weird excuse we got a few times at the door based on how you pick a candidate. A lot of confused voters would be like, I don't know, I'm between Buttigieg or Bernie, or I'm between Klobuchar or Bernie.
I'm between Andrew Yang and writing in Dr. Pepper.
We did get a Yang or Bernie. That's who I told I was. Yang was my second choice.
I believe in Andrew Longfellow, and I want to elect him for office. No, so a bunch of people were saying, well, I want to vote for Bernie, but I'm afraid his supporters are mean.
People said
Which,
that?
yeah,
We had
several
this one
times.
guy who said he
Which is like-
doesn't like that the Bernie supporters don't seem like they will vote for whoever wins in the end if their guy doesn't
We
win.
had that one too.
And I said,
I also
Sir,
talked to someone who
I
had
looked him
that.
dead in the eyes and I said, Sir, let me assure you,
Yeah.
I will be I can't speak for every other Bernie supporter, but I will be voting for whoever the Democrats choose in November.
Your first reaction is, oh, that doesn't make any sense as a concern. It's a primary. You should vote for who wins. But then your immediate instinct to lie kicks in, and that's when the sale happens.
Yeah,
Kids,
folks,
I
these
cannot
people
tell
are
you
dumb.
anything. Like,
I think-
if you take anything from this, it's the transformative power of just lying to people's faces about your intentions.
Just
I think
lie.
you can sort of make the argument in earnest, like the trolling argument that's like, well, yeah, that's why you got to pick Bernie. You can like sort
You
of
shouldn't do that.
change-
Don't
well,
do
not
not do
that,
this.
but you can say like
You
he
do not
has
have
the
the power
most
level.
passionate supporters, which is a good thing for a general election. You need turnout.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know?
oh,
I mean,
Jeremy,
I had
see
a
that
reasonable
thing you said?
conversation
Yeah.
with someone today about that who seemed, and he used the word narrative. He said he's worried about the narrative because he thinks it'll turn other people off from it. And there's
You
some
gotta clock that, 'cause
statistics
that's a
you
big
can,
word.
guys, we have to, can't all. There's some statistics you can rattle off pretty easily about like the number of people that went from Bernie to Hillary over the number of people that went
Yeah,
from
no,
Hillary.
you just pull that out pretty casually. Just say, more people went from Bernie to Clinton than went from Clinton to Obama. It happened at a higher incidence. But always, like, the thing that helps is framing it as, like, this isn't uncommon what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It may happen among Sanders supporters, but it will happen among Kamala supporters, too. It'll happen among a lot of people who feel burnt that the person they believed in didn't win because people believe in things.
And as we learned this weekend, it's very true for Warren supporters as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
By
wanna
the
go into
way,
I hate. No,
Did
I'm not going to
anybody-
say I hate Warren supporters.
No, we
because,
don't
look,
hate Warren supporters.
I don't
Come
hate
in.
Warren
The-
supporters.
The door's open.
The thing is like, look, I would
for paying
never,
for our
I would
podcast.
never hold a candidate accountable for the worst of their supporters, but I would talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because,
But also, just to
you
make it
know-
clear, don't feel guilty about your desire to write in Goku.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel bad about that. If they rat fuck Bernie out of this nomination, write in Goku. Who the fuck cares?
Yeah, I mean,
he's
it's
so strong.
Yeah, so last week look, I'm a convert to Bernie Sanders. You don't have to worry about me. I have the full zeal.
Yeah,
I
in
made
some ways, more powerful than us ethnic Bernie supporters.
Yes. I've forced multiple Bernie supporters to go to other states, make phone calls. I mean, I'm really, I'm on fire for the Lord. But
damn
like,
bishop.
I voted for Bernie in 2016, but I also like didn't. Yeah, like I don't know. The whole thing seemed like he couldn't win to me, and whenever I would say something like that, especially on social media, like a lot of dudes would say like sexist stuff to me, which is real. I mean, but also it's like the thing is like all candidates have bad supporters, and I've been like never fucking hearing the end of it from Elizabeth Warren supporters, man. Like, I wrote this essay about how Raghav died. That I published in Elle last week because I wanted to help people understand the need for Medicare for all, but also to humanize the experience of losing someone very important to you because because politics is personal, and that was the point. Like, the point was about like going from somebody who thought politics was like an online battle to going from somebody to like becoming someone that understands that this is like a very, very, very personal thing for people. But I'm getting fucking dragged by some of our
fucking
Warren
worst
friends online,
people.
and it's like, man, honestly, give me a fucking guy telling me not to vote with my vagina any day of the week before since there's somebody that would like be so uncompassionate as to like drag me for an essay I wrote about my like a person that I loved very much who died. But I think that they were mad because there's not really a way to kind of debate the essay I wrote. Like, it's sort of raw enough that it doesn't really invite like a debate around it.
Well,
you would feel like an asshole, and I wrote it that way on purpose.
And you also don't mention Elizabeth Warren. You're not talking about her healthcare plan. You're talking about Bernie Sanders and why you support him and why you support Medicare for all.
Yeah.
It's extremely gauche of someone to insert Elizabeth Warren into that at all. But to make a point about this, about the Bernie bro thing that has just come back fucking immediately out of nowhere, the deceptive thing about that narrative is that they're arguing that that is a thing that is specific to this one candidate, Bernie Sanders,
exactly.
for some
Whereas
reason.
all
And
candidates have bad online supporters.
people have been the other candidates' supporters and the candidates themselves this week have been so fucking toxic. I mean, if you want to talk about somebody, being mean to you and tweeting snake emojis at you or something, you have to contrast it with someone who is like insulting a grieving person and accusing them of being MAGA for writing like an honest, heartfelt essay. These people are so fucking cynical, and honestly, that's meaner than anything Bernie bro I know has ever fucking done in the name of some political candidate.
Yeah, I mean, and, I don't know, man. That was kind of the point that I came to. I think in terms of like evaluating the morality of the supporters of different candidates or whatever, which is like honestly like a pretty stupid thing in my opinion to base any part of your vote on. But
Sure, yeah.
I just but like let's say you did, like I would certainly give in to two assholes that are both saying mean things on the internet, and one of them wanted me and my whole family to have healthcare and for us to do something about climate change, and the other one was the same amount of rude on the internet but didn't want those things. I mean, obviously the more moral person is the one who has an underlying concern for humanity.
Well, that's then the problem with the Bernie bro narrative from the beginning is that somebody tweeted and summed it up pretty well, which is it's just like no matter how mean to someone was mean to you on the internet, and that's your justification for not wanting poor people to be able to go to the hospital, right? That doesn't make any fucking sense. It's a dumb argument to begin with. But, I think it just shows that once and for all that these people, especially the journalists and the professional types that are coming at us from a place of power about this shit, people with professional jobs and shit, like, Clara Jeffrey from Mother Jones and all that stuff.
Yeah, she's horrible. And that's the person that this comedian was defending, by the way, was
black people ain't be having no Bernie, Clara Jeffrey, the white lady who said that, and it proves that they're just, they've been lower than all of us this whole time. And like another one of those people that happened to chime in is that we tweeted about that thing that happened with those Yang Gang kids, and Candace Aston chimed right in with a bunch of fucking like Pepe Frog people to tell me she was taking joy in the idea of me being punched in the face, So at what point you gotta look at yourself and go, who the fuck am I even allying with just to be, anti-fucking socialism?
Look, it's like, we all have different views, I love Bernie Sanders. I love my friend Jake. I can also understand it completely why someone would want to punch him in the face, but it's also... I think that one of the things that this Bernie bro narrative does, which I actually think is the first most sinister thing, is erasing Bernie Sanders' multiracial working class support. And that's the first most sinister thing. But point number 2, which I would say is not, far away in terms of its badness, is that it is a narrative which erases the human, like the compassion of a leftist platform, and like turns it into something that is like somehow evil, and it completely obscures the whole moral discussion around these issues. Like I personally, the reason that I am a leftist at this point versus like when I wasn't like opposed to it, but the reason why it's really important to me now, honestly, is because I'm a better human being than I used to be. Like the experience of going through something that was deeply tragic made me a more empathetic person, and that's why leftist politics became more important to me. And I think that it sucks that people who are, I think, less compassionate and less concerned about the well-being of their fellow human being are able to take a moral high ground. And that's what the Bernie bro narrative does.
I also think, 2016 is such a specific moment in time. I mean, all elections are, all points of history are, but there's this, that people still haven't realized that, the Hillary Clinton campaign was a coalition between, white bankers who live in Manhattan and black people in the South who both voted in the Democratic primary, but that coalition is very tenuous. That doesn't mean you have any sense of affinity with these people. And the Clara Jeffrey is still speaking as if she is part of this group that
Sister
is a
Clara.
coherent thing. Yeah, and now it's broken, and they don't understand that was just a very specific moment where, for a lot of reasons, Bernie, didn't appeal to African American primary voters, who are not even the majority of black Democrats in America.
I think a big part of what we're seeing now with people coming into Bernie's camp, and you can look at the stats, and it's incredibly clear that before it was a little questionable about what our appeal to communities of color was going to be going forward. People were saying we have this diverse working class coalition, but we didn't really know until Iowa.
Yeah.
And the moment we got those stats back in Iowa, we fucking know now that that's who is behind Bernie.
Because we showed up. It wasn't about his body language. It wasn't about his arm movements. It's because he hadn't been organizing in those communities, and that's what he's been doing for the past 3 years.
He wasn't.
That's what the left has
communities.
been trying to do.
And frankly, he had no name recognition. Nobody knew who the fuck he was the first time around. And the moment people knew who he was, they said, "Oh wait, this is way more valuable to me than Elizabeth Warren, saying the names of dead trans people on her her State of the Union address. Like, somebody who's going to support Medicare for all so I can actually fucking transition is way more valuable to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me just add this,
As
which
well
is
as homelessness.
Yeah.
as well as homelessness. If there is one lesson that you could take away from, I don't know, completely anecdotal firsthand experience for this week, it is be nice to Warren supporters for this week because she's going to eat shit in New Hampshire.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Nobody mentioned her the entire
Nobody
time.
likes her.
There was like
Oh my
5
God.
lawn signs. She ate shit in Iowa. She's going to have to drop out. So if you're mean to them this week, they're just going to leave us for Pete. And he's going to be the biggest rat you've ever fucking seen.
Such a huge
Can I,
rat. Go
can I
ahead.
use this behind the paywall privilege to drag something I couldn't drag on my own podcast?
Yes,
A forbidden
please.
drag?
Okay, so yeah.
Dragon?
I want to drag this piece in The Nation
You're right.
called The Erasure of Elizabeth Warren. And it's by Joan Walsh. And
Horses.
I've seen a lot of Warren supporters posting this about how Elizabeth Warren is like how she hasn't gotten as much coverage as the men in the race who came in first and second in Iowa. And to me, that just, I'm not saying that the media has covered Elizabeth Warren fairly. Like, there's definitely, I definitely agree that there have been very sexist aspects to the coverage of Elizabeth Warren. Any discussion about likability, but to kind of consider it makes sense to me to not focus a lot on the third place candidate who comes
Yeah.
out of Iowa. Like, that's not the big story. I'm not saying that she can never be in the media again, but if Iowa we accept as this like kind of determinant of something, which is like a stupid premise to begin with, but it's like, it's not, I don't know, like it's really kind of silly to think that the reason that people aren't covering somebody who came in like third place and like
This is
like
Tom
a way
Steyer erasure.
a way behind third place to
Yeah.
be like some kind of like a sexist thing. That is silly. And I think the reason that it bothered me is that like anybody could look at what happened to Bernie Sanders in Iowa and the way that the media spun the story of Pete as being the winner when he did not win. Like, to me, that's the big, like, terrible media story out of Iowa. And I don't know. I just, like, I'm a person who is a feminist. I care about it when people are sexist. It makes me really mad. I'm famous for it, even in our friend group. But I just think that this is very... I don't know. Sometimes the
sexist,
focus
yeah.
on that narrative can prevent you from seeing the actual big structural inequalities that are happening.
I think what you're seeing is
funny.
there's been this kind of narrative around the campaign for a while now, for all across the board, where nobody wants to go after each other too much because everybody kind of has this, I want to say like implied idea in their head where like at the end of this all, we can all win.
I know.
Someday all the candidates can skip across the finish line together, and we'll be 5 presidents living in the White House together. It'll be a fun little. It'll be
It'll
like
be like
Full House.
Three's Company.
It'll be like Three's Company
But
and
with
Full House.
presidents.
Yeah, it'll be great show. But
Could
this
you
is
imagine?
this is that
The
narrative
landlord comes
hitting
in.
the ceiling, cracking its head, and falling down to die. It's over now. Somebody has to win the primary. It's not cute that Elizabeth Warren came in third. It's bad. She's going to lose.
She's going to lose so bad. And so she might not drop out this week. She might not drop out next week. But very soon,
She has
her
nowhere
money
else
is
to
leaving.
go.
She's firing people in her own campaign. Folks, she's about to dry up. And we're going to pick up her body and turn it into jerky for our campaign.
Pete is going to kill Big Structural Bailey.
He's
Yeah.
going
Oh, I
to
can't wait. We're going to put down Big Structural Bailey.
Yeah, I think that it's
Break
America
its
chose a
neck.
different way.
I mean, it still shows that like 37% of Warren supporters would go to Bernie Sanders. I think that there's plenty of Warren supporters that are, technocrat liberals who will absolutely vote for Mayor Pete, and I'm not really sure it's going to be a good thing.
Well, just like Bernie Sanders supporters can't be quantified
Women.
and represented by their worst of their supporters. A lot of Warren people aren't Clara Jeffries and these crazy fucking people on Twitter.
I
you
know.
Yeah.
And even if they are, you want their vote. Remember that. Even if they're pieces of shit, you want their vote.
I don't think we're going to get Clara's.
No, you're not going to get Clara's. I mean, I am calling it right now. When she drops out, big bump for Buttigieg. It's a lot of the same class appeals to people who think they know better than other people and need to bring them into line with their fancy degrees and jobs.
I think it's going to split two ways. I think especially younger Warren supporters will go to Sanders. There are some of them who we will not name. You may or may not read stories about this in the coming days, who are working on the Warren campaign and for reasons will be voting for Bernie Sanders.
Very
We have some
well
inside
done, Andrew.
information, but we cannot share.
Just absolutely flawless execution. But in terms of the fear of people leaving Warren for Pete, I happen to think that after Tuesday, it doesn't fucking matter. They can go wherever they goddamn want, because if Pete doesn't win New Hampshire, it's over for him. He's going into a desert after this.
Literally the desert. He's going to Las Vegas, baby.
And that's
he needs New Hampshire more than we do.
And that's why I'm not super. I mean, I don't want to get too cocky, but like if you look at 2016 again, Bernie tied Iowa, won by a landslide in New Hampshire. It felt like he had all this momentum, but in Nevada and South Carolina, he didn't have enough organization on the ground, and he didn't have enough support among people of color. And both of those things are even more true for Pete.
Yeah.
And he's definitely not going to win by a landslide in New Hampshire if he wins.
There's also something about what happened in New Hampshire when we were there that gives me a little bit of hope, which is that it was really frustrating thinking, well, this is the place that should be supporting our fucking boy, and then being in a part of town that was, based around a college, and all these people were, being very vague and lame and liberal. But it took me a while to realize, I think we went to the worst neighborhood, because although it was projected as being, this huge town for Bernie, I think what's going on here in the polls might be that what really is Bernie's power here is this town is a fucking libertarian stronghold. I mean, the state, rather. And, the license plate motto is fucking live free or die, And there are these people that do not like the establishment, and in some ways they bleed over into going into for an outsider like Bernie. Some of them also go for Trump, but his power is that he wins over a lot of those voters. And when he wins over a fucking Trump voter, it's a double win, because that person, A, won't vote for Trump and is now voting for him. So it puts him 2 steps above every single time,
As we always say,
and that's why Pete's going to lose in Nevada, is because there's fucking hardcore libertarian energy down there too.
Yes, absolutely. It's like an east-west libertarian thing. But I was going to say, as we always say, every state is a different season of Breaking Bad, and we know which one this is.
Yeah.
And this is not the plucky Breaking Bad at the beginning with the doctor you want to get behind. This is the bad man with the hat who's bad.
That's a really good point, because we are going from the one where he lives in a log cabin in New Hampshire to the early ones in the desert where it's fun and they shoot guns.
And you learn science a little bit. Every episode you learn a different thing about science. You're what is he going to make a bomb out of?
As long as we're talking about the specter of this fucking Pete guy and the other candidates are, kind of skulking around doing their thing, I do want to mention that Sean King just retweeted this account of Pete Buttigieg's staff for ripping the press credentials off of a black cameraman's face. Off of his shirt, not off of his face.
Get a face tattoo.
Where you choose to put your press credentials is up to you, and no one can take that away.
That is your business.
If you want to put a lanyard stapled to your head, no one should be allowed to touch that. Least of all, a white man.
Biden is melting down hard. We just got news and watched the clip of him being asked by a supporter something rather innocuous about how his campaign wasn't going very well.
It was like, you kind of didn't do so great in Iowa. How are we to be sure that you're going to be able to win going forward?
So the viral clip that kind of went out, I think Sean King also retweeted that, is him the big phrase you're going to hear is him calling this woman a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Yes. Well, he asked her, have you ever caucused before? He says, caucuses are weird. Have you ever caucused before? She nods, and then he says,
No, you haven't. You're a dog. Yeah.
Yeah, and you might be thinking, oh, this might be something that he sort of provoked himself into and got himself worked up into a rage. Second sentence, you are a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Like, he had it
nowhere.
loaded. That is a phrase no one's ever said before. He had that locked and loaded.
He said it twice.
He says it again to a different person.
The same phrase, uncharacteristic of him, because it sounds like he's
question's just
freestyling.
Like, hey, you're running for president, you piece of shit. You're a dog.
Where did he get that from?
I don't know.
I think this is like something his wife taught him. He's picking up bad lessons from around the house.
The thing, I think the reason it's so funny to me is because it reminded me of this thing that'll happen sometimes in stand-up where, like, a crazy person wanders into an open mic, and then they go on stage, and they're just like, man, you lying dog-face, crazy pony soldier, and they ramble for like 30 minutes, and it's like anti-comedy funny. It's like funny, but that's not supposed to be.
It's like Joe Biden funny.
And you and your friends laugh at it in the back of the room, and you're like, man, that person was just like opening up their head, and they were just tripping balls and just saying the craziest shit ever. And then you come back a week later, and they come back and they do it again, word for word.
Yes.
And you're like, you wrote that? What the fuck? I think that's what's going on with him, is that he's actually putting work into these weird-ass, old-timey euphemisms and shit.
So we haven't gotten to the bottom of what the expression is. We found there's a movie called Pony Soldier. And it's a cowboy movie because cowboys are often on a pony and their work does involve soldiering in the acts of war.
Yeah.
And so that's at least the tail end of it. But to call a child Dog-Faced Joe is just no way to run a campaign, and it's going to bite you come dog season. And dog season's coming soon.
It's going to bite you like a dog, and then Pete Buttigieg is going to kill the dog. But the dog has a face. It's got a dog face, but it's riding on a pony.
Riding on a pony.
Or is a pony. We can't quite figure it out.
Trump says to women. He says, like a dog. Like, that's not a good look.
It's not a good look, but the thing about Biden is that I feel like people are ready to count him out. I don't think he's out yet.
No?
I think he's flaming out in like a very short-term sense. I think once we finally kill the rat, I think he's coming right back up.
I want to talk about...
we're going to be facing off against him in the South.
What's that video we saw yesterday?
Which, the ad he did about
so
Mayor
Biden,
Pete?
while he's still in the race, is providing a very valuable service because Bernie is now kind of like bickering around the ends with the progressive vote between Warren and, let's face it, Steyer, who is only sucking up Bernie supporters as far as I can tell. But Biden has a shit ton of money and is spending it all on Buttigieg because Buttigieg, despite not winning in numbers, is the perceived winner of Iowa because of CIA trickery. And so he's really like sucking the energy out of him. We need more middle of the lane battling happening. Did you guys all saw it, right? So the commercial is like, Joe Biden presided over the biggest economic boom since the gold rush, or some good fact about Joe Biden. And then it'll be like, Mayor Pete cut the ribbon at the Staples in Indiana. And like the fucking like song you play as your child is falling asleep comes on. It's like, look at him, he's a little baby. It's also like a 4-minute ad.
Yeah.
It's an ad designed specifically for old people that we will not reach. It's the perfect weapon.
Right.
I'm so excited.
It's bad for both of them because it makes Biden look like an asshole and Pete look like a novice. This is like perfect when he's both.
And he's both.
He's very bad. I was thinking this week, I was thinking about kind of things that could happen, sort of gaming it out in my head. And I think if the media let Bernie have the victory that he had in Iowa, I think if they acknowledged it, I actually think that, Bernie could have, had a pretty easy time in New Hampshire, which I still think he would win, but
that's
he could have
exactly
had an easy time.
why.
And then he could have I think that Biden could be out. I think because they did that to him, a thing that could happen is, let's say the rat won New Hampshire. I don't think it's totally impossible that he would get some momentum that would carry him into some other states because a lot of people vote based on electability. And I think, but yeah, I agree with you also that because Bernie didn't get that clear narrative that he won Iowa, even if he wins New Hampshire, I don't think that Biden has totally flamed out. No, I think New Hampshire and Iowa are mostly all white states, and it was always a possibility. Like what the media was saying for months was that Pete Buttigieg was going to win Iowa, New Hampshire, and that was the whole plan, and then Biden would kind of come back after that. I still think that's a real possibility in South Carolina.
But yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but I think the ticking time bomb is Biden lying about his civil rights record. He's just been going around saying that he was hanging out at black churches during the civil rights movement. It's just falsifiable.
He's not lying the way we're lying, in a cool way. He's lying in a bad way.
Well,
it's alarming talking to voters, though, because they don't seem to know all this shit. But I will say that most of them at least seem to know that Biden sucks by now.
Sure.
Yeah, I see him flaming out because the worse and worse it gets, the more agitated he's going to get. They've already tried to... Yeah. They had to regroup this week, like a few days before the New Hampshire primary. They had to go back to Delaware to just rethink the whole fucking thing.
Right.
And then they decided to go ham with that ad. We'll see if it works.
That's when he came up with Lion Dog Face Pony Boy.
This is it. We found it. The perfect distillation of weird phrases. He probably paid somebody $1 million to think of that.
I'd say, who do you think is his writer for his diss track?
I think that is something he was supposed to call Trump, and he just yelled at one of his own voters.
Is there any chance Joe Biden has cannabis on a payroll? And just look, I come across a girl who's too mouthy. What do you got for me? Lion, dog, face, pony soldier.
Yeah, but he's just gonna get. I mean, he gets cranky when the pressure's on. He doesn't do well under pressure, doesn't do well with scrutiny, and that more and more of that is going to come the worse he does. Or he's just going to stop getting as much attention, he's going to fade, so he's going to try and get it back by being ridiculous, and it's just going to blow up in his face. I could see him being done in a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point because I feel like all of the campaigns are sort of falling apart in their own way. Except for Bernie's, but the amount Bernie has to win by to overcome the open rigging that is going to happen this entire time has to be substantial, or it's not going to carry.
You have to win by a large margin, or else they can steal it.
If you don't win by a large marge, you're not in charge.
Large march. Does anyone have any really good stories or good points they want to get to before I kind of go into this thing I did for the end?
Well, I'm just trying to think of is there any wacky road trip stories we have from this?
I feel like we got a few.
We gotta get something good in there.
We got some.
And it can't just be making fun of David Spector. But
I know. Let's do. I have exactly that. Okay, so we were talking about David Spector a lot this whole time, and this morning I got paired off with him to go do some canvassing, and when I realized what was happening, I just sort of sighed, and he went, what? And I was like, well, I mean, come on, it's funny.
Pain in the ass.
And I felt kind of guilty immediately because I didn't realize what I was saying, and I was just going well, you're crazy, And he kind of got quiet, and the more he got quiet, the more I was like, no, I'm sorry. That was a dick thing to say, And then I just kind of had to go into this thing where I was like, it's just I mean, you just do these things where you eat carrots instead of dinner, and then at 4 a.m. you're like, why don't I Uber myself to a McDonald's? And then I have to explain what Grubhub is, and I was kind of racking my brain to be I mean, come on. And I ended up just, telling him, you have a very angular energy. You're like music where the notes are on the off beats, but with a conversation. You're like Rush, but with conversations. You're like prog rock, and I think we made up
progressive comedy.
Yeah, and then we went and knocked some doors, and honestly, I think he's pretty good at canvassing. Actually, we made a really good team.
He's very direct.
Yeah,
I've seen him do it before. He's kind of like a businessman in a way.
Yeah. And he said he used to do it for work.
If you ever have a friend who's just too bossy and they don't seem to know a social line for where that annoys you or not, they're probably perfect for politics. And we are waiting to prepare David Spector to run for some sort of office. He's just not old enough yet.
He looks so young. He looks like such a good boy.
You'd have to be so careful with his public perception, though, because you can't just let him talk to a camera. It has to be about a thing. He can't just be has anyone seen my backpack or whatever?
He'd have
Today,
Biden gaffes all the time.
Yeah, today I was thinking about it this morning, and sorry, I am going to be sentimental here. It's going to be really stupid. But I was thinking about it today about what a weird group of people we are, and just how much we both like are funny, are weird, and care about what happens here, and we're just all really like strange in a like similar way. And I'm glad that we found each other, because you can certainly go through long periods of life without knowing people who understand you. You know, like, and yeah, it was nice to be doing something with you all.
I had a
honored to
really
serve.
great time. It was outside of the canvassing being annoying. You know, even that feels fine.
Yeah.
It's a fun road trip.
Yeah.
Oh, we got to talk about that Airbnb.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It was kind of haunted a little bit.
There was a terrifying painting of a child Republican.
This is a house. It's like a kind of like you wouldn't notice it off the side of the road. It's kind of like a brick-colored house, and it said it had room for 6 people.
That was very sweet, by the way, Kate. I didn't mean to cut you off and immediately start talking about this creepy child painting.
Immediately start talking about this creepy child thing, but the fact that you would do that is my point. Like, we would all do that, which is why we're friends. Yeah.
Your friendship is beautiful, like the oil painting of a 7-year-old on the wall with little like done-up boy hair, and he's staring at you as you sleep.
Yeah.
That was a feature of the house. We watched 3 hours of Jeopardy drunk. Me and Anders shared a bed in an office that it turned out we were not allowed to sleep in.
They might be listening.
Yeah.
They're not lit. It's behind a paywall. They would have to go so far out of their way.
Yeah.
We did not sleep in the office. That was a joke.
I don't think that would be amazing. I feel like if they've made it behind the paywall of this podcast, they would be so stoked that you stayed in their house, because they would love Bernie Sanders.
I think there might be at least one deep state agent that has to sign up for our Patreon, because they did very much enjoy when I talked to a guy that was pro Hong Kong protests.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. The room that Jake and I were staying in was it was like the child's room with like 2 little kid beds. One was like a loft bed, and one was like the little child's bed below.
I did. It felt like I was in the end of Hereditary the whole time.
Yeah.
The ceiling was like arched and shit.
I actually felt like a very like child slumber party vibes, you know, but instead of like a
Yeah, we're all going to
braiding
each other's
hair-
rooms and shit.
Yeah, it was cute. It was very cute.
What
Yeah.
else?
The office had Hillary 08 stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh yeah, we were doing.
I
Parasite
had
shit.
the experience of, you know, when you go around a video game and you can pick up little clues and find out the history of the sordid environment.
Yeah,
I gathered enough
like a
to
mist.
figure out that this was like somebody who'd worked in advertising for 40 years, and their deepest fears, and how much they loved Hillary Clinton. There was a whole entire mini basketball hoop in the office with like
yeah, we
30
didn't get to play it,
basketballs
though.
in it. There was Freddy the Fish stuff everywhere. They clearly had a child in the 2000s, and I think that child died, and that's when the hauntings began.
Yeah, that dead child. That kid. My friend Avery Moore, when I tweeted that picture, said that child. That's their very dead, very professional child.
That child died, and thus it never aged.
Yeah, I ripped my pants open, slipping on ice, canvassing, and then I took them off, and everyone, including me, found out I'm wearing yoga pants. I thought they were
Yeah.
thermals.
Get wrecked.
They said thermals on the packaging.
Yeah,
They said they were men's
Lululemon
thermals.
on the top.
They're thermals that just happen to showcase your tight ass.
Well, come on. It's so
Come on.
round. Come on.
Did you guys think there were spots of cold in the house, almost as if you were walking through a spirit?
Of course.
Ooh, that's
Because Anders and I, when we would go over to the office, there was a part that was like right by a side door, and it might have been cold because it was a door, or because of a malevolent energy.
Well, we got there in the middle of the night, and it did have very, like, cabin in the woodsy vibes, and I was like, this would make a good movie, like a bunch of Bernie bros getting murdered. It's like, America would love that.
Bernie ghosts
Yeah, for just being too, socialist or whatever.
being sexist in the afterlife.
Oh, they would probably make them choose. Like, it's like a diverse group, and they have to choose which friends die.
I'm trying to
based
think of,
on
like,
privilege.
Casper's uncles, but they like make you show them your feet.
Yeah.
I don't know how they like lick them and stuff with their big cartoonish tongues. They're doing. I think a ghost could create a real life GIF.
Yeah.
Because they're available to powers that are beyond the material realm, and thus you can kind of like play a video in thin air. If you have the transformative properties like that. Bernie ghosts. Anybody else got something? Bernie ghosts?
Bernie ghosts.
Okay,
That's what
Bernie
we need.
ghosts. All
right.
We'll come back to this. We'll go next
Honestly,
episode.
okay. If we may need someone who can speak to the dead, because if he does, if he is truly too old and he passes away, we're going to need to have him govern via seance.
He will die within our lifetimes, and he'll be our first ghost president.
Yeah.
That's representation.
If anyone's got anything left, I wrote a thing while I was tripping my face off that I think I'm going to round out.
Dramamine, right?
Yeah, which will be in this story.
Don't tell them it's Dramamine. They want to know Jake is cool. Jake does not trip on Dramamine.
Well, I'll explain how that happened within the story. I wrote a bunch of, it looks like Zodiac killer scrawling shit, but I remember what all this means in like a note on my phone. And I think this also will be pretty funny, but I also will get a little sentimental because this was rather important, even though we're all making jokes about dog-faced and shit. So something kind of interesting happened to me last week. Starting off with the fact that I listened to this podcast that my friend Sean KB from Antifada made about utopianism, and he talked about Gnosticism a little bit. And if you don't know what Gnosticism is, it's an early mystical form of Christianity that's just really bizarre and very shamanistic and stuff. And it sort of precedes like alchemy and then Christianity. It's something that's kind of been on my mind for whatever reason. It's just like an odd topic, like a trivia thing. And it'll come back in the story in a little bit. But mainly my motivation for trying to work hard on this trip is Iowa, obviously. And I almost a while back thought, well, we might be actually, of more use in Iowa or one of the other primaries, because I thought this New Hampshire one was going to be one that Bernie really knocked out of the park. But, obviously, as soon as Iowa happened, I realized what they were going to try to do, and that made me feel really grateful that Kate organized this trip to begin with, because I would have been too lazy and disorganized to ever get my ass down here, And the thing about Iowa is that, and the thing that I kept trying to explain to these people who kept saying that they didn't want to vote in the primary, they just wanted to see if Bernie won, is that is we can't do it. We can't afford to do it, because what is actually happening is you're becoming a victim of this narrative they're trying to manufacture as like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're trying to will something into existence. And how they do that and how they fuck us is with the media. And a lot of people have been arguing with me about this online and saying like, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, and I think it's funny that the people that have been talking about how every single thing that they don't like is, a Russian chaos agent, etc., for fucking 3 years straight suddenly are skeptics about conspiracy theories. But they do have a point, which is that we tend to use the narratives of conspiracies selectively and project them onto things that are sort of like helpful to us, And the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I think probably what happened in Iowa is that due to just the sheer, incompetence of neoliberal, like, tech worshipping ideologies and stuff like that, they did, use an app that then fucked up, but then they were able to take advantage of that situation and use media and the spin in exactly the right way to solve a problem that looked like, I didn't know how the fuck they were going to fuck over Bernie in Iowa, It seemed like he would just win. But what they did was create this thing that, since the one thing that would ruin it for them was the ending, they stopped the ending from happening. The night of the Iowa caucus, I remember having a really vague existential just like uneasiness because I was getting drunk and stuff, and I was trying to go around to different parties, and I had a show Crazy David Spector threw together, and I remember just feeling really, really exhausted at the end of it because it just never ended. It felt very tantric, or like just like like I was on acid or something, and it was just like, oh my god, like this just feels like it's never gonna fucking end, and it started to build a lot of dread in me. And then I realized that's how they're going to do this. They're going to basically create a situation where we never know what happened, and because we never know what happened, combined with Pete just going ahead and saying he won, he then affects future voters whose votes, like we saw, were hinged on the concept of electability. He won himself over voters by lying and telling them that he already won. So that's insidious and that's evil, and I really hate it about Mayor Pete and the media and the whole apparatus. Anyways, something weird happened right after that. After that in my notes. Okay, so moving forward a little bit, we did this podcast episode last week with Dave Anthony, and one thing that was really funny about it was this Christian cult that we found called Dominionists that formed a group, like an anti-climate group called Resisting the Green Dragon. If you listen to our show, you probably remember it. It was really funny, and I was just saying, Resisting the Green Dragon to myself all the time. And it was a Christian cult, which is weird because I had the Gnosticism thing on the brain, and they were post-structuralists, which is a weird note because I had like Gilles Deleuze on the brain, who is a post-structuralist thinker who believes in this thing called rhizome theory. That's like fucking, it's all sorts of crazy. Hopefully I'll understand it well enough at some point to talk about it on this show. But I just had this dragon thing on the brain, and it kept popping out to me.
Dragon.
I know this is crazy. I kept seeing dragons all week. I kept noticing this thing, like, there's a thing that people report, like, right before they have, like, schizophrenic breaks with reality, where they just start seeing, like, synchronicity everywhere. Like, they just keep seeing the same shit, like the letter L or something, like that movie, The Number 23, And it's like, well, that shit is always just out there. You just never notice it all at the same time. But I was just having this crazy week where I was just like, dragons everywhere. And then, like, a couple days ago, I sat down to play Magic the Gathering with my friend Blake, who is a good friend of mine who is trying to stay sober right now, and I hope he doesn't mind me, like, dragging too much of his dirty laundry into this.
You know him from the Iran episode.
Yeah, he's my friend that I yelled at about Star Wars.
Dragging him too much into this.
Yeah. And some listeners and some Twitter people, some fans, mailed me a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards because I had tweeted about how I was trying to, do sober shit with my friend, and like we used to just get drunk all the time, but one thing that really helps is playing nerd games because we both really like them. So we randomly threw 2 decks together and we started playing them, and mine was a night deck. Actually, somebody sent me that. I played the night deck that one of you guys sent me, and thank you guys very much. That was all very sweet, and then he threw together this random deck that was just made out of dinosaurs, right? And so the whole time I was like, man, I'm a knight and I'm fighting a dinosaur. Oh my God, I'm slaying a dragon, right? I was like, why do these dragons keep coming into my fucking brain, right? Blake also had a heart attack, like Bernie. Like, all this synchronicity shit is just like, it's coming into my head as a joke writer, because I'm someone who'll make fun of him and call him Bernie Sanders because he had a heart attack and shit. Why is Reaper acting like this? Okay, probably because we're bouncing around in a car. Anyways, so I also had synchronicity on the brain, and when we left to go off to New Hampshire, I noticed that our own Anders Lee is reading a Philip K. Dick book, right? And if you listen to the show and you know Anders, this is maybe a little uncharacteristic. It jumped out to me because I was like, Anders is usually reading some large tome about, history or Ralph Nader or something weird like that, So I was like, man, Philip K. Dick.
Anders has an angular way of thinking.
Yeah.
And an angular face.
You were about to say dick, right?
Yeah, and he has an angular dick.
So...
An angular dick. I'm driving.
So I'm fucking... man. Bumps. Fucking up my recording. I don't know what they're doing. Anyways. No. My joke list just came up.
Hey, if you're listening, you got to repave 95 because this is unreasonable. I mean, it looks straight, but it's like we're bouncing all over the place right now.
Wait a minute.
We got to be near the WWE building by now, right?
We're outside
God.
Stanford.
That fucking bump caused me to delete my notes, but I found them.
Oh, thank goodness.
Jesus Christ.
The recording's okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Everything's good.
Back to driving.
Okay. Sorry, this is getting somewhere, I swear. So... Yes, it kind of weirded me out. I kind of felt like I was like a little I was really hungover and I was kind of losing my shit a little bit. And I was like, I'm having a synchronicity thing about synchronicities, like Philip K. Dick, And I was kind of hungover and because I've just been working a lot and drinking late at night and stuff. And when we were, cramming in the car to come down here, I had to stop and get some Dramamine, which is a thing that I haven't taken since I was a kid, but I know what it is. It's a motion sickness drug, right? And all I remember from taking it as a kid is that you take it and then you don't get motion sickness in the car. But it turns out it has a side effect that I forgot about. If you've ever been to like Erowid, if you were ever that type of person when you were younger or now, there's this drug database website where people like, you know, it's a forum where people would like write to each other different ways to get high off of Home Depot supplies and shit, or like if you find a pill, you can look it up on Erowid and it'll tell you what it is, you know, because they have like codes on them and stuff. And I remember reading and laughing really hard at one point because if you take too much Dramamine and you do that to trip on purpose, you have a hallucination, and everyone who does it has the same hallucination. There's this phenomenon called common hallucinations. Everyone just sees dead people. It's really fucking weird, and like everyone on Erowid is like, never doing that again, because it made me see a bunch of dead people.
Like people you knew who died, or like just bodies, like zombies?
Like Pirates of the Caribbean skeletons?
I mean, hallucinations are hard to explain, so I want to say just like, vague, like skeletons, but those people could have meant anything. I don't know.
They may have looked like skeletons, but that was actually all of the survivors of the United 93 crash.
Yeah. I mean, I never personally experienced it really, so I don't know what they meant, but it sounded funny as shit to me when I was a kid. I was just like, oh my God, there's a drug you can take that just sends you to the Greek underworld, you know?
Hades.
Yeah. So there's this weird thing, this concept of common hallucinations that another drug makes you have, ayahuasca, right? And I was thinking about ayahuasca, and then suddenly I was like, ayahuasca. Oh my God, it keeps happening. If this sounds insane, this is while I was tripping and I was writing all this shit down. But ayahuasca causes you, supposedly, a lot of people have this common hallucination where they talk to a fucking serpent, a talking serpent, and that's the trip that ayahuasca gives you. Ayahuasca is what DMT is derived from. A serpent is a dragon, okay? And and like Elizabeth Warren has the fucking snake emoji thing, and it's just fucking weird, right? She's a dragon too. Everything's a goddamn dragon. And we're talking about death, and we're talking about where'd it go? Okay, just making sure we're still going. We're here on behalf of our dead friend and everything, and I don't know. The whole thing was just getting really fucking weird, and then we stopped, and I wasn't really tripping at this point, but when we stopped and got out of the car, I realized, oh, you're not supposed to get out of a moving vehicle while you've taken a bunch of Dramamine, because what it's doing is keeping your inner ear bones or something, like, from doing a certain thing.
Right, it keeps your inner ear bones from doing a gyration.
Is that what it does?
It's called inner ear gyration. It actually grounds the ear bones, and when you're up there, it's one of the only ways to keep the ear bones all the way down into the bottom of the floor of the brain.
Is this real?
Yeah.
Oh.
If it wasn't real, why would I say it?
Because I thought you were going into a bit.
No, it also wasn't real. I was just
God damn it.
You said ear bones, and I thought it was funny.
You have tiny bones in your ears that like maintain your balance and shit.
Yeah, that's true.
That part I know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
I am a doctor.
He's the son of
And
a
I'm
doctor,
driving.
man.
So we got out of this fucking car to go eat the other night, and we went to this Chinese food place, or it was like a fusion place or something, and as soon as we got out, I felt like I was on so much like Molly or acid or Xanax or something. Like I started to get sick to my stomach and just dissociate and shit. It was really fucking weird. And then we were talking about like Benel dressing up as a Dragon Ball Z character, and I was like, Dragon. And I don't know, we go into this fucking restaurant and we sit down and we eat, and I open my fortune cookie at the end of it, and it was the weirdest fortune cookie I've ever received in my fucking life. It read exactly this: slaying the dragon of delay is no sport for the short-winded. It was really weird, right? And I was already like tripping, so I was like, what the fuck does this mean, And I was like, oh my God, also more dragons, right? And I just kept thinking about the synchronicities and stuff, and all this weird shit that was happening. And then I remembered something about Philip K. Dick that was the reason I think I got so freaked out by Anders having that book, which is that there's a story about him, and it's explained in the end of the movie Waking Life, if you've ever seen it, that Philip K. Dick had this this experience when he was writing this book called Flo the Policeman's Tears, where he had writer's block and he couldn't figure out what to do about his book, because the book's about like some guy who's like a cop or something, and then his like wife's cheating on him, and then there's this third person or whatever, and so he goes out to this party to like take a load off, and he's talking to somebody at the party, and he realizes like or the guy asks him like, what's, you know, how's it going, and he's like, I just have writer's block, I'm just writing this book, here's what it's about. And then and he realizes as he's talking to the guy's a cop and his wife's cheating on him, and then there's this third guy, and he's like, holy shit, you're in my book, like, how did I do this, you know? And this is when he's starting to have a break with reality and, like, you know, start just developing all these delusions. Philip K. Dick, if you know anything about him, near his later life, he goes completely crazy, and he's like, what the fuck, you know, how did I write a bunch of people in a thing set in the future that's hypothetical, and then they exist in real life simultaneously? So he freaks out and he goes to a priest, and he's describing this story to the priest, and he's saying, I wrote this book and it's about this guy, he's a cop and his wife's cheating on him, and then I met him, and the priest stops him and he says, you're describing the book of Acts. That is a book that's in the Bible. There's a cop and his wife's cheating on him, and then yada yada. And he's like, what the fuck, like, I had never read the book of Acts, so I don't know how I wrote it without having ever read it, and then met people that were in the book, right? And so he's freaking out, and
Did they have cops in Bible times?
I think it was like, you know, somebody who fucking,
like a Roman soldier,
like
or something,
an archetype of a cop type thing, like vaguely a similar position of authority or
You
something.
couldn't make a badge back then.
Yeah, I don't know. I also don't know exactly what the plot of that is. The cop thing is just a placeholder, but there might be, you know, cops in the Bible.
They have those big feathery hats.
I don't know. I'll never read it, man.
Okay.
But anyway, he keeps talking to the priest, and the priest is like, well, have you ever heard of Gnosticism? Have you ever heard of like Gnostic Christianity? And he goes, no, and he explains it to him. And the thing about Gnostic Christianity is that it's all set around this this myth, or this story, whatever you want to call it, that happens right at the moment of the crucifixion. So, you know, they go to crucify Christ, and then what happens is a time demon appears and knows that all of humanity will be saved if Christ is crucified. So the way that he stops it from happening is casting a time spell the moment before the crucifixion, and everyone is stuck in that moment, and that's the whole point of Gnosticism.
If you're a time demon, that's one of your main spells too.
Yeah, it's the highest level one you have.
It's the most powerful one, but it's also like your whole thing, and there's almost no way around it except outside of time.
The only spells you have up until the game are like, you know, weird buffs and shit, and
Yeah,
like
you can do Dispel. You can do
doesn't work very well.
Barrier. You can cast Bahamut.
Yeah,
Bahamut is a fire demon. He's more powerful than the time demon.
yeah. You have to
Talking about Bahamut?
Bahamut.
You can cast Bahamut.
Bahamut Zero.
It's a demon in shorts.
It's a Final Fantasy summon that's just the Bahamut, but they're from space.
He lets the dogs out. It does the highest amount of damage.
So the myth here is about this demon who is preventing us from being saved in the only possible way, by trapping us in time. But we still perceive time as having moved past the event, and so we all just think, well, it just didn't happen, and now we exist in reality. And the whole point of Gnosticism, I guess, back then was like to fucking figure that out and shit, and kill the time demon or whatever. And I was thinking about this, and then it occurred to me, like, what the fuck does this dragon of delay thing mean? And I was like, oh, delay. The delay is the manufacturing of consent. The delay is
The Iowa results.
Right, exactly. And that's what I was feeling the night of the Iowa results, when I was like, it feels like this moment is supposed to end and it's just not ending, right? So
By this moment, like, you mean the moment of delay around the Iowa results, or like this moment where
Kate, I don't know if
things
you
are
listened. We're
stuck in
talking
our
about
history?
the crucifixion of Christ.
Oh yeah,
The moment right before it.
No, I heard that.
I mean, look,
I was just trying to follow along. I'll
It's
shut
a
up
spell. No, I mean,
you can't follow my insane scribbled notepad thing? No, that is like the metaphor I'm making here,
like
right?
this moment but I guess my actual question is, are you expanding the metaphor to this entire moment of history?
Maybe on like a larger level, because that is how they end Waking Life. Is they go, "This is just the moment. There's one moment." But what I'm really doing here is drawing a ridiculous parallel between the demon stopping time at the moment of the crucifixion to help to stop us from being saved by Jesus, to the demon of Pete Buttigieg and the media, the dragon itself, being that stopping time and stopping it in a sense to keep us from being saved by our big socialist boy.
The dragon must kill the rat.
Yes, exactly.
The dragon must kill the rat. There's a lot to think about there.
I mean, I realize this too, is that the snakes eat rats. So if Warren drops out, the snake would eat the rat of Buttigieg, hopefully, if her supporters put Bernie over the top.
U2 has a song called Stuck in a Moment, where you can be stuck in a moment, but they won't endorse the IRA, and actually think Americans have a callously far away perspective of the whole conflict and take more radical positions than they would have in Ireland.
I love it. They're not wrong. Do they have dragons over there? I don't know. I stopped seeing dragons after the Dramamine wore off, by the way.
Oh, they're still around.
I was tripping so hard. I couldn't sleep, and so I was just tying all this together in my head. And, I was like, not actually having a break with reality, I don't think, or at least not now that the Dramamine is wore off. But I was just like, whoa, this is such a fucking... this is a weird fucking... I could do something with this. I don't know. But the thing that it also made me laugh about realizing that the dragon of delay is the media apparatus and Pete Buttigieg and all of them, is that it said we could not fight it by being short-winded, and we're a bunch of fucking comedians, and none of us motherfuckers are short-winded. This podcast is an hour and a half long already. So that's what made me feel really good about going out with crazy-ass David Spector and, all of you, and not feeling afraid to talk to these motherfuckers about what's going on. And all of this made me feel really good, and it immediately put me back into a moment that I've just been dwelling on this whole time, which is that we drove out here, and when we got here, it was dark, and somebody, while we were all sucked into our phones and fighting with fucking evil people on Twitter and shit, somebody happened to throw on that song Farewell Transmission that played. I put
that on.
And I figured it was you, I think. But it just kind of, it took me by surprise because that song is so fucking heavy with meaning now, after Raghav's funeral and everything. And when I was listening to it, there's this long refrain where he's talking about, the long dark blues and everything. And we were coming down this hill right into fucking Keene as it was happening. It was kind of pulsing. And I just felt like we were just like... I felt really good about the fact that we were just like descending into the fucking black night of this place to do this thing and to fight this dragon I constructed in my head that isn't just like Pete Buttigieg or Warren or any of them, but it's the whole apparatus, it's the whole collective thing altogether that's working against us, that we had come here collectively to fight. And as I was thinking about all this, the Dramamine is just pulsing harder and harder, and I kept thinking about that fucking thing from Iroquois where it's saying like you're hallucinating in a way that's causing you to like visit the dead, but I didn't take enough to like full on just lose my mind and do that. I felt like I was halfway there, so I just had this vague feeling the whole time and especially because there's a lot of emotions running, and I was thinking about how none of this would be happening if Raghav hadn't brought us together like that I just had this really intense feeling that he was in some way, even if not literal, because none of us necessarily believe in that sort of thing, but in like a figurative sense and in the way that reality sort of bends when you're tripping like that, even in a metaphorical sense, or just like in the fact that we're all like experiencing something like this and talking about it, that he was present.
silences now. All the great set up hearts, all at once, start to beat. After tonight, if you don't want this to be a secret out of the past, I will resurrect it. I'll have a good go at it. I'll streak his blood across my beat, dust my feathers with his ash, feel his ghost breathing down my back. I will try, no, whatever I try, I will be gone, but not forever. I will try, no, whatever I try, I will be gone, but not forever. Real truth about it is, no one gets it right. Real truth about it is, we're all supposed to try. There ain't no end to the sands I've been trying to cross. Real truth about it is, my kind of life's no better off. It's got the map
this is when I fell asleep. That's the end of the story. But I don't know, man. I just fucking love you guys. That's it.
Yeah, man, I had a great time. Thanks for coming out,
Yeah.
everybody.
It was beautiful on many, many levels. I'm
Thank you.
not too cool to be earnest about the fact that, every once in a while something happens that's very moving, and I think it's very moving that we all did this together.
Me too.
On our last bonus episode, I heard that you guys were going and then invited myself to come along immediately after, and I'm so glad that I did.
I'm so glad too. It was really nice to be like all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anders Lee here.
Yeah. To end on something a little funny.
That's not what we do here.
That's not what we do here. I feel like we somehow browsed right over the organizer trying to.
Oh yeah, that was the story I was trying to remember the whole time. That was
Alex,
really funny.
do you want to take this one?
No, organize.
When he realized who Jake was.
Okay, yeah. So just a little cleanser after a moment of deep thought. So we're in the organizing office, and everybody's got like this good energy going. We're just getting our routes, and we're stepping out. And Kate's there, and she's filling out a form. And the head guy looks at her, and he goes, "Oh, are you Kate Willett?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm Kate." And she goes, "Oh, okay. Is Jake here?" And Jake is standing next to Kate, and he's like, "Oh, that's me. I'm Jake." Kind of this moment where like, "Oh, we're meeting fans. That's pretty cool." And so there's like this
another one.
This moment where we're just like, "Oh, we're gonna say hi or whatever." And then without a even moment of doubt, this man looks at Jake and goes, "Do you know Chapo Trap House? Can you get me Chapo Trap?" There wasn't like a "I love your podcast." There wasn't like "I think you're funny." It was just like, "Hey, I know you know some other guys, and I'd love to meet them."
Yeah.
And that's what this trip is all about: bringing people together.
Bringing people Chapo Trap House.
We didn't deliver on that.
I do.
Did we not?
Can I say one more thing?
I think we actually did.
It was very heartening to see, because when I went to Iowa and this weekend in New Hampshire, I saw friends and faces I know from left Twitter canvassing both places, and it's nice to know that some people are not just posting, they are doing the work in real life. And I meet people that listen to all these lefty podcasts, and it makes me realize that, like, even though online is weird, like, it's and not quite real, like, there is an actual, it is somewhat related actually to an actual community that we have among one another.
Yeah.
We're a beautiful community of dragons and dragon slayers,
We're
and
all
all of you need to
dragons.
go get out the vote, or else our future is destroyed. Thanks so much for listening to our Car Casual Cast. What did I call it?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Pod Road.
Car Canvas Cast. That's
Car
right.
Canvas
We will
Cast.
be doing
Okay.
them anytime we're canvassing in a car. And the time has come to shift right back from neutral to park. So I want to thank you for tuning in, and have a blessed drive.
We didn't crash, everybody.
And we're going to play the NWA clip where it goes, "Stop, stop, stop, stop," and then it crashes, but not the part where they say the N-word.
I'm not going to do any of that. I got
Great.
too much work to do when I get home. Maybe I will. All right.
Alex, if
It's
we
finished.
stop-